Thanks for joining us this evening in our city council meeting being held on the 27th of May of 2025. We appreciate you being with us this evening. Before I forget, I would like to excuse Councilmember Severing. I believe Councilmember Pulver is joining us online this evening. So just wanted to make a mention of that. This evening, we have just a slight change in plans. Councilmember Watson will be giving us a invocation or thought, followed by leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. So we'll start there, Councilmember Watson, if you'd like to proceed.
I'll start with an invocation. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful at this time that we can gather together as a city and as members of this community who care about its future. And we pray that that will guide and direct those of us who will be speaking, that we can work efficiently and effectively and think of the needs of all. We pray for guidance in all that we do and blessings of safety upon all those who are a part of this community. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson, for filling in on such short notice. We appreciate that. We'll go ahead now and let's see, I thought I saw this. Where is Ricky on my
First thing.
There we are, Ricky. I didn't want to forget you. We're going to hear from Ricky Hatch, who's our Weber County clerk. He's going to talk a little bit about the upcoming elections taking place, and we appreciate him joining us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know you have a busy agenda, so I'll keep it under an hour. We're going to breeze through these slides, but really appreciate working with Ryan and her team. And we're grateful for the opportunity to help you run your elections. We realize it's a choice. You don't have to use Weber County to run your elections. It's really hard with how complex they are to do it yourself, but we're grateful for that. I want to talk just really briefly about the impact of voter engagement. This slide shows between 84 and 2012, voter turnout drops by just a massive amount on average in Utah. Let's go to the next slide. That meant that in 2011, in the municipal elections, one vote counted for 50 other people who either weren't registered because they were too young or incarcerated, or because they chose not to be registered or chose not to vote. Next slide. Here are the turnout trends. If you look, that starts in 2002 when it was 12%. These are even year elections. The G means that there was a governor primary, and you look, the high primary was in 2020. The turnout was just over 60% for the primary. On the next slide, it shows the general elections in even years. The P stands for president, and you can see the presidential and governor's races always bring out more. The high point was in 2020 with just about 90% of the vote. Last year, we were at 85%. Next slide. For municipal elections, you can see from 2011 to 2023, that's the turnout trend for municipal elections. Let's go to the next slide. If you look at these trends, you see a dramatic increase in primaries, generals in even years, and generals in odd years. And that happened in 2015. Next slide. And the cause of that was in 2015, we began mailing voters, every active registered voter, a ballot. And that drove turnout. Tonight, I want to talk about 4 pillars of election integrity. I'll be quick. We could talk for a long time, but I'm just going to talk about these 4 pillars. Next slide. Note that the first 3 are audited, and they're audited before, during, and after every election, before the results are certified. And they're done in public meetings, publicly noticed meetings where anybody can observe. Next slide. First is deals with the voter records. When it comes to the voter registration database, there's a separation of powers or segregation of duties or separation of duties between the clerks and lieutenant governor's office. Lieutenant governor's office is tasked with managing the voter registration database, the actual programs, and ensuring the security of the data. The clerks, on the other hand, are in charge of the data. We're the ones that update voter records. The lieutenant governor's office can't do that, but clerks can. We can't update the program, but the lieutenant governor's office can. And lieutenant governor's office audits. Behind the scenes, they audit all of the county's list maintenance activities, and they provide us with quarterly reports to say how we're doing and areas that we've done well in and poorly in. Next slide. As far as voter verification, before we will mail a voter a ballot, we have to verify them through their state ID. That's usually a driver's license, and approximately 97% of all voters are verified through that driver's license or state ID. Or we could do it through the Social Security number. We verify that before registering the voter. If we can't verify them, we don't register them. Next slide. We maintain our voter rolls. We check for duplicate registrations, both within Utah and outside of Utah in approximately 24 other states. We do other things that are listed there, and we're doing this constantly on a daily basis, including we check the obituaries and when we mail ballots to voters, some of those come back to us as undeliverable. In 2013, the very first time we did a special countywide election, that undeliverable rate was 20%. Last year, it was 1.9%. So we've really, really cleaned up our voter rolls to make sure that they are accurate and current. Next slide. Oh, and this is where it's audited by Lieutenant Governor's office. All right. Let's talk about the security on ballot envelopes. On the next slide, we'll talk about, let's go ahead and move to the next slide. Ballots remain sealed as we're processing to make sure it's a legitimate envelope from a legitimate voter who hasn't already voted and who is qualified to vote in this election. On the outside of the envelope, there's no party information. We don't know much about the voter at all other than precinct. And if we can read your signature, we might be able to see your name. But we do that on purpose. We don't want any of that information to have an impact on how we view whether this is a legitimate vote cast or not. Next slide. Every envelope has a unique control number that's generated on it. It's automatically generated, and it's specific to not just the voter, not just to that election, but actually to that envelope. And that is a key control, which you'll see is on the next slide, because sometimes things happen. Dog eats your ballot, it gets soiled or something like that. If that happens, you can request a new ballot. Before we can send you that, we deactivate or spoil the original ballot control number. And so if you tried to vote that one instead, our machine would kick that out immediately and say, this is not a legitimate envelope. And we have to do that before we can issue a new one. Next slide. This is our envelope sorter. This is what scans the barcode, takes a picture of the entire back of the envelope, and verifies and makes sure that this is a legitimate envelope for the current election. Next slide. We also do signature verification. This is going to change this coming up soon because of stuff that happened at the legislature this year, but we compare it up to 5 signatures per voter on file. If it's challenged, it goes through 2 additional steps. And if it fails at the 3rd level review, and the 3rd review is by full-time staff, if it fails that, then we contact the voter and the voter has a chance to correct that. It's called the cure process. Next slide. This is also audited. We audit this process during the election live as the envelopes are being processed, because if we find somebody, we keep stats on every signature reviewer and make sure that the acceptance rejection rate is within a certain common range. If not, then we flag them and we take them aside for additional training. Every person who reviews signatures has to go through forensic signature comparison training every year. Next slide. As far as ballot processing and the chain of custody, we group ballots together. Always the buddy system, we're required by law to always have 2 people present. They initial the card whenever envelopes and ballots are being processed, and we conduct reconciliations throughout the process. If it doesn't match, if the reconciliation doesn't match, we stop everything and we go find why it doesn't match. Next slide. This is our scanning equipment. This scans the actual ballots themselves and converts them into a digital format that can be then tabulated. Let's go to the next slide. I'm not going to read through all of these. We just had an audit on these, and the audit by the state legislative auditor general found that these statewide were not connected to the internet. They have no wireless capabilities. Software updates are done manually. We have security seals, and we conduct hash audits, which helps verify that that system has not been compromised in any way. Next slide. These machines are also audited in every election. We audit them before every election, and we audit them right before we certify the final results. And in Weber County, we also conduct a hash audit before and after, which is an additional audit of the software and hardware code, making sure that it hasn't been altered. And we do that in a public meeting. Anyone is welcome to watch those. Next slide. The last one is voter responsibility. It's up to us as voters to make sure that our address is current. You can do that for free at vote.utah.gov. If you move, you should change it with the driver's license division as well. If you do that online with the driver's license division, that will automatically port over to the voter records as well. You can also track your ballot status yourself and get notified by email, text message, or even phone call when your ballot is mailed to you, when it's received back in our office, and when we have counted it. And another good thing is the Postal Service's Informed Delivery Service. This actually sends you an email with images of the mail pieces you're going to be receiving that day. It's a free service, and it's excellent. It's a great way to see what's coming. Lastly, if you receive a ballot that belongs to someone that no longer lives at your house, just let us know. Give us a call. Next slide. I talked about audits, that they're done before, during, and after in full public view. Next slide. Now let's talk about the new laws. First off, we are no longer in Utah a postmark plus state, meaning your ballot has to be in the clerk's office by 8 p.m. on election night or at a vote center. And that is new law, and we're going to include notifications and things in the ballot envelope as well as on the back of the envelope, but that's going to be something that we're going to have to get used to as voters. Next slide. Okay, this is kind of a busy one. This is the House Bill 300 that was passed this year. Before 2029, regarding voters' choice, before 2029, all active registered voters will still receive a ballot in the mail, and they may begin declaring that choice either when they renew their driver's license or when they vote in person or when they renew their registration online. After 2029, after January 1, if that voter hasn't made that choice, we will not mail them a ballot, and they will be required to vote in person. And every 8 years, they have to make that choice at least one time. 8 years is the driver's license renewal period. And if a voter misses 2 consecutive even year general elections, then we stop mailing them a ballot as well. They would have to come vote in person. Now let's talk about ID versus signature. Before 2029, voters may include the last 4 of their state ID or the last 4 of their social if they don't have a state ID. And if they don't provide a number, we will verify the signature. If they do provide a number, we validate the number. After 2029, that flips. And the voter will have to provide one of those 2 numbers on the back of the envelope, and we will verify that. If they don't have it, they can include an ID inside the ballot, and we will no longer be validating signatures. So just today, let's go to the next slide. Just today, you were the first people to see this. This is a sneak peek of mostly what our ballot is going to look like. So it's going to have the place for the signature, and then right underneath it, you'll have a location for entering the last 4 of your driver's license number, which state law says if you have a driver's license or state ID, that's what you should enter. If you don't, then you can put the last 4 of your social. And then you enter your email, phone number if you want to receive official notifications from elections. And then it also has the ballot that it must be received by our office by 8 p.m. Next slide. And we're almost done here. If you have any questions, of course, you're welcome to call us, email us, go to our website. There's a lot of information out there and about elections, and we would like you to get it from us because we're the ones running the elections. And then, of course, you are all welcome, and the public is welcome to come to open houses or to come arrange for a private tour. I would love to stay. I'll do it any time of day or night. Well, we won't do it too late, but we'd love to have you come tour our offices, and we'll walk you through the process and ask all the questions you want and make all the challenges you want. We want to have an airtight process. And we invite people who come through to think like a crook. If you can come in, if you can find a hole, and then tell us, and we'll plug it. Next slide, and I think that is the last one. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call or email.
Thank you, Ricky. Just a couple quick questions. A lot of them are in the Dropbox, and historically that's been available till 8. Does that mean if it's in that box, it's classified as being in your office, or?
That's correct. It has to be under our custody. So yes, I didn't mention that, but yes, it has to be either in our office or in a Dropbox by
Okay.
8 p.m. And if there's a line at 7:59 of 10 people and you come in line, we're going to let you, by law, we have to let you vote.
Okay. Then the other question is on social security numbers. More people know my social security number than I do, frankly. I mean, it's just, it's just
right.
out there. So is there a process that checks to see, because you said it should have your driver's license number in there if you do. So will there be something to say, okay, there's a social security number here, but there's no driver's license number, and that's what should be there? Or if there's a number in the social security, the last 4 digits, is that acceptable? Or if you have a driver's license, is it going to say, hey, wait a minute?
Yeah, state law will not penalize, or we can't reject somebody if they write the last 4 of their social, even if they have a driver's license number. We will still verify on the last 4 of the social. And we have a way, if we have your social, we can go look up the driver's license as well. So even if we don't have that, we can pull that up and we'll update the voter record to include that.
Yeah, my only thought is that social security numbers, anybody could have them, frankly, to be honest with you.
You're right. Frankly, I'll be
But I'm not
honest.
sure that's a good validation of it's the real person.
I'll be honest. I don't view that as a better check than signature. The ideal would probably be to have both. We validate numbers and we validate signature,
Okay.
and we're proposing that to the legislature.
Yeah, I think that's important that, they look at both those because
Yep.
social security numbers are so. Any other questions for Ricky? Councilmember Watson?
I was just going to say, I recently went on a tour and it was very informative and it was very impressive, and I appreciate what you do there in that office. I also had a signature rejected once. It was my own, but their staff is very helpful, and it went really smoothly.
Thank you.
Yeah, we think you do a good job. I know there was discussion about doing away with voting by mail, but I think the statistics show what would happen to the voting percentage if that were to happen. So,
Yeah.
but thanks for all you do, and please pass on our appreciation to your staff and those who participate in the process. It's a very important process, and so please pass that on, our appreciation.
We'll do that. They're a great team.
Yeah.
Really good. Okay.
Led by a
thank you.
good leader. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Council, based upon tonight's agenda, is there any conflict of interest that needs to be disclosed this evening? Okay, I see none. Our next item on the consent agenda is to approve the May 6th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes. I believe you've had a chance to review those in advance. So based upon that, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as submitted?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Barker. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you, Councilmember Pulver. We do have several issues tonight that will require a vote by the council. So we'll start with Councilmember Pulver, who's online, and then just move down with Councilmember Watson to Councilmember Barker and end up with Councilmember Dowpass. So we'll now move into our active agenda, and we'll have public comments this evening. Those who would like to comment, if you would step up to the podium and please state your name and if you're a resident of North Ogden. And please limit your comments to no longer than 5 minutes. John, if you would, online, if anyone raises their hand, please let us know. So we're now open for public comments.
Mayor, City Council, my name is Dave Shoup. I live in Liberty, Utah. I own a business in North Ogden, which is Coldwater Animal Hospital. I've stood before you before and listed some complaints. I have yet a new one for you. I'm not sure, John, did you get that picture? If you could post it.
It didn't come through.
Didn't come through. Yeah, I don't know if it's appropriate to pass my phone to you and have you look at it, but I'm welcome, or I'm willing to do so. Apparently there's been a problem with, I think it's a sewage line or a drain line on the west edge of our property down to where there's an access. I don't know, an easement, I guess, allowing you to get there. Recently, I just had my parking lot resurfaced and restriped. Cost me $9,221.51. And then today, you had to have access through my parking lot with your big vacuum truck, but you tore up my parking lot and left it a mess. It wasn't until I expressed my concerns during business hours that Mr. Dave Espinoza did come over, and thank you, Dave, for cleaning up the mess today. I understand you're not through, but if it's just not fair for me to spend that kind of money resurfacing my parking lot only to have North Ogden City tear it up. And I'm not happy. And if North Ogden City is responsible for tearing it up, then I think that it's North Ogden City's job to fix what they mess up. And they ought to do it in a timely manner. That's what a good neighbor does. And quite frankly, there's been multiple times when North Ogden City has not been a good neighbor to me. This is one more vicissitude of life that you're imposing upon me that I'm not happy with. And you need to know it. If I say nothing, then you won't know it. And so it's my duty as a citizen to bring it to your attention. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Shoup.
Sandy Cochran. I'm a North Ogden resident. I want to thank everyone who participated in the coming up with the Facebook comment policy. And I agree with pretty much all of it. The only concern I would have is in the package, it said, if a comment is removed, the commenter has the opportunity to appeal that decision. And if that happens, the two senior council members would decide. And one of your most senior council members isn't on Facebook, doesn't participate at all in Facebook. And so I would question that decision. Maybe somebody else could be chosen who's savvy about Facebook and what's a norm on Facebook and what is not. No offense intended at all, it's just an observation I had. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone online, John? I don't see anyone with their hand raised. Miller?
My name is Reed Miller from North Ogden. Hey, I just want to make a statement with regard to Mr. Hatch's comments. He brings up things about maximum security with regard to the voting system, and it makes it sound like his office is doing everything in the world to, hey, make the voting really good. But his actions, as I have seen, are really less than what we should be with regard to the public. Because after we had the election with, what is it, 2020, we had some real discrepancies with regard to the election itself, with Blake Moore and the Badger, Andrew Badger, who was doing it. And so we as a public went into the state and went in other places too to get the records so that we could actually see the audit ourselves as the public. The lieutenant governor's office and the election offices completely shut us down. They did everything in their power to make sure we could not have any access to any of those, the ballots. And they let it go for years, literally years. And if they kept it for 2 years, they could destroy the ballots, or they could destroy the evidence. And they did that. Now, if there was anything that was, discrepancy, why wouldn't they let us have access to it? But they didn't. And so be aware of that. The other thing is the election office is doing their things by way of ERIC. ERIC is supposed to take care of the problems with voter registration. And we have found that many states in the United States have done away with ERIC because they have done a bad job with that. But the state of Utah and our county have just promoted ERIC to the max. It's not a good system. And the founders of ERIC are anything but, good people. The third thing is judicial review has sent to the state capitol, in other words, the Dieter Henderson's office, the election office, a notice that they have to clean up the registration. They found that our registration is anything but adequate, and they gave them a deadline to do it. What I'm getting at is this: our state election system is anything but good. Anything but good. And so keep that in mind when you hear a person like Ricky Hatch just, with the thing on the board doing everything good. Hey, there are an awful lot of things that they're not allowing the public to really get in there and examine things. They hide as much as they can from us. That's all I say.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. John, anyone online? Anyone else here like to comment this evening? Okay, we will move on then. We're going to start with item number 5 on our active agenda, which is the discussion or action to approve ordinance 2025-08, which is annexing approximately 19.56 acres of land, I think located at approximately 1050 East and 2400 North. This will be our city manager and attorney John Call will be addressing this issue. John, do you have anything to say before we open this for a public hearing?
Yeah, Mayor, let me just show the property. So council, so you're aware, the Barker Park Amphitheater is over here in the northwest side of this subdivision. So these are the homes, or this is the field that's between the Barker Park area and the Oaklawn Park area. And then this is a new proposed road that Scott can provide some details on, to provide access down to the fish farm, which is currently still in the county, and is being requested as not necessarily part of the discussion tonight, but it is something that we need the council to provide some feedback on, because annexing it and assigning a zone are a little different than approving the actual development. And I think that we would be suggesting that the council give some thoughts on, is a 30-foot private road appropriate in this area? And would the council be open to a development agreement that talks about this development and the trade-offs and things going on to make sure that the fish farm stays viable and has good access for years to come? So and Scott, any other items you want to add to that?
So thank you, John. The real issue is that as proposed, that's a 30-foot private drive. And what the Barker family would like to see are those lots that are south of the east-west cul-de-sac. John, I don't know if we have a laser pointer, but there are 3 shallow lots. So those 3 right there are going to be, self-limited in how they would be able to be developed, but they're essentially private street ordinances that we would put 3 single-family residential homes on. And that's not unprecedented. We have several private drives that have, say, multifamily or condos on them. Majestic Views is one that comes to mind, just north of the cannery, but we don't do a whole lot of it for single-family homes. So if this is the outcome that the property owner ultimately desires, I think that they would need to come back and request a development agreement from this body, and that may or may not go in front of Planning Commission. I guess it could maybe come as a recommendation through the administrative subdivision process. But I just wanted to clarify, and I have with the property owner too, that annexation tonight to a residential R110 zone does not necessarily provide this specific layout for the subdivision. So that's the main issue that they have.
Scott, is it just the private road and the 3 lots that you would say are out of compliance with the R110 zoning?
Yep.
And we can fix that with a development agreement, right?
You can legislate a number of things through that development agreement, and it would be up to the property owner to come and show what are the trade-offs. What's the reason that we would do the development agreement versus keeping it under just like a standard R110? Yep.
Okay. So even though we potentially would be approving an R110, we're not necessarily approving this plat. It'd have to comply with everything under R110.
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. Any questions for Scott before he goes too far away? Mr. Dalpaz?
Just a comment. I know we're not approving a subdivision plat right now, but I just wanted to mention, it looks like, are those power lines that are in the rendering?
Yep.
Okay, so just wanted to make sure that they were aware in their planning that they need to make sure that those are spaced properly to allow for the distance that they need to be away. The roof lines need to be from those power lines. I don't know, based on looking at it right there, I can't really tell, but they just need to make sure when they bring an actual rendering that they have that taken into account, since we've had that recently come up.
Yep. And there's really 2 lots that are most impacted. I can't read the numbers from here, but that's one, John, and the one to the northwest. Yep. But that would be self-limited, and you're absolutely right that they would need to come back and show us. We've seen it. I believe we saw another configuration of this as well. So there's a few ways that this has been laid out. It's not finalized. And of course, Planning Commission, as the land use authority, does that administrative process of the layout of subdivisions. But that's a great point. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Watson?
I was just curious as well, not that it's necessary at this point, but the Fish Farm Road that the private drive would connect to, is that a private road or?
Yes. And it's a private road that a part of it exists in the county. The city does not maintain it at all. It's only about 20 feet wide. It's really more of a private lane that the public has just been given access to the fish farm for years and years. The property owners have suggested that they may want to fence that off on both sides, like have a gate access controlled. The city does have utilities as a sanitary sewer that runs down that. And so the city would need access to that gate. But we would love to see that 20-foot private drive just restricted just for those property owners, those homeowners, and we don't maintain, touch it, do anything with it.
Is there an option to have the city own that drive? Okay.
It's so undersized by our standards that it
It wouldn't.
wouldn't comply at all. If they brought it up to standard, it would require maybe the elimination of structures, but ultimately you'd lose lots of front yards, side yards. So there's no desire for from the city to own it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Hess?
Thank you.
Mr. Call, do you have any further comments?
Nope.
Council? All right, then I would open this up for a public hearing to discuss the annexation of the referenced property. Those who would like to address any issues regarding this annexation, now would be the time. I see none. John, that would like to participate in the public hearing? I don't see anyone online unless you do.
Nope.
Okay, well, if there is no public comments in regards to our public hearing, I would look for a motion by council to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Councilmember Barker. We have a second to that motion.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Dalpaz. Any further questions? All in favor of then closing the public hearing, please say aye.
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 Thank you very much. Motion passes unanimously. That'll move us on to our next item, which is ordinance 2025-08. And this is a discussion or action to approve that ordinance, which would annex that property of land located, as I previously stated, around 1050 East and 2400 North. Once again, that's ordinance 2025-08. So council, I'd be looking for a motion to approve that ordinance, which would annex this property into North Ogden City. Do we have such a motion?
Mayor, that we approve ordinance 2025-08, which is annexing 19.56 acres of land located at approximately 1050 East and 2400 North.
Thank you, Councilmember Dalpez. Do we have a
Second.
second? Thank you, Councilmember Pulver. Any further questions or discussion? Yes, Councilmember Barker.
Do we have to assign the zone on this?
Well, that's what I was going to ask, is the fact that historically, unless there's been an issue that needs further information, we have approved the zoning in conjunction with the annexation. Mr. Call?
That's correct, and it actually shows up in the ordinance. Let me show that just so it's clear. So in section 2 of the ordinance, which you're adopting, it does say the entire area be zoned R110.
Okay, so I don't need to amend, right? It's, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the ordinance. Okay, any further questions for Mr. Call? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, we have no further discussion. So we'll take a roll call vote on this issue. Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
Councilmember Watson,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalpaz.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously to annex the property into North Ogden City. So thank you, council, for addressing that issue. We'll now move on. I guess we should have asked the applicant if they had any comments. Usually no comments when it's approved that quick. Why put things at risk, right? All right. Okay, we'll move on to item number 6. This is a discussion or action to consider the adoption of a social media policy. And this will be presented by Mr. Akal, our city attorney and city manager. Mr. Call?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a follow-up from a previous discussion where last meeting the council said they would like to find a policy that allows for commenting and provide the parameters. So this policy was created with the help of Councilmember Pulver and Susan Kilborn provided some good feedback on this, on some ideas on things that could be included. So the changes in red and the strikeouts are things that don't matter as much. In fact, maybe it's easier just to look at it this way so that you can kind of see the policy. I know that based on questions I've received from some of you, you've all read it. Probably the most significant thing is that this first group of bullet points are those things that we are required to follow under the First Amendment, that we can only prohibit comments that are obscene, promote criminal conduct. There's this, oh, sorry, this is not, let me show you this other version. So there is some case law out there that says that you may be able to keep out defamatory, libel, or slander. The trouble with that is trying to decide if it's true or not. And usually the court's the only one that can tell you if it is, unless it's clearly saying something like, you know, I don't know, the mayor's from Mars. Maybe that would be.
That'd be a compliment.
Incitement to violence, true threats. It's not just threats, but threats where there actually is some real potential for violence. We can prohibit fraud, spam, malware, and viruses. And then there is kind of a catch-all that covers state and federal statutes, which would protect information that we'd be able to eliminate if they were disclosing what would be statutorily private information. And then we have another section that identifies that if there's a content that violates legal ownership rights or promotes discrimination, which would violate the social media platforms rules, that we can report those to the social media platform and allow them to take action. Technically, those are things that are protected under the First Amendment. The best example of that is that the KKK is allowed to march and hold their rallies on public ground because it's a constitutionally protected thing. And so we would be relying on this social media platforms policies where they, because they're not a government entity, have more ability to restrict or to regulate hate speech and those sorts of things. It was identified by Sandy that the way the appeal is set up is if someone wants to appeal a decision of being removed, that it would go to we put in the two most senior council members. It could be any of them. The only thing we'd say is that we want it to be two council members and not three, because as soon as you get to three, it's a public meeting and requires all the notice, which would limit the effectiveness of their comment if they don't get a decision on whether their comment can be posted till it's maybe irrelevant. And so if it was one or two council members, that would be great. And it could be processed hopefully pretty quick, because I think on social media, you'd want a quick turnaround on any sort of an appeal. And those are kind of the highlights. I know that there may be comments and questions and changes, so we can tweak it, amend it. The plan is as soon as the council adopts a policy that we will turn comments on to social media. That doesn't mean that you have to do it tonight. It's just we need to do it at some point to get the comments back on.
John, thank you for that presentation, and thank you for the efforts to you and Chris and Susan for getting something before the council this evening. I think there is merit to the fact of who approves the removal. I'm assuming that our approach is it can be removed. It doesn't say that we will remove it, but it can be removed. So I'm not sure, how concerned we are about. We don't have anybody that's monitoring that 24/7. We shouldn't be expecting someone to be monitoring it 24/7. But I do think that, the most senior council members won't always be involved in that. I guess the question I would have is, you as our legal counsel, you would be most prepared to determine if it's brought to our attention by a citizen who monitors the site and feels that's the case, or a council member who's active on social media. Well, could you help us understand why you feel it's essential to have the council involved?
So as far as the appeal, the hard thing is the way that we're currently set up. If the PIO officer, I guess that's redundant. If the PIO says, hey, this doesn't follow the guidelines, we need to eliminate it. Currently, that's the city manager and city attorney. And so it has to be someone who's over that person who would review and provide comment, unless you wanted to set up a group of department heads who could make that decision. It's just sometimes people might feel not good about telling the person in charge that they're wrong, whereas the council is the one that's really in charge and could easily tell everyone else they're wrong. So that was the reason it was set up that way. But if we wanted to create a different structure, that would be helpful. The First Amendment isn't necessarily easy, especially when you're getting to language that's offensive, but isn't obscene. And so there's going to be a line that will have to be danced as we move down this road.
Yeah. And not to in any way insult the council, but I'm not sure they would understand the legality of that difference, frankly. Plus, I think it's been our intention to try to elevate council's involvement in strategic issues. I'm not sure this is a council issue, but that's surely their call. I just don't think we're going to be removing that many comments. And frankly, I guess if somebody wants to put them out there, that's their call.
We
Not John call, but their call.
We could amend who that person who makes the initial decision to being a different member of city staff or a member of council that could, the person in charge of social media could reach out to a council member and say, hey, should we pull the comment? And then there could be a different group or person that would then evaluate the appeal if the council would like to do that.
And my problem is, depending on who the council member is, just as an example, Councilmember Watson may consider something obscene or offensive that perhaps Councilmember Barker wouldn't. So, if we start determining just calling a council member and saying, should we remove this? I think there's got to be some recommendation from legal counsel, John, on giving the council information on why it should be removed. I just hate to see that placed on non-legal minds.
I agree.
There's no math involved in it, so I think we're
Well,
pretty
so
safe.
we just want to make sure that because of the way we're set up now, then that someone else is making the initial decision if the legal counsel is going to be involved in the appeal, so that it's not the same person making the same decision twice.
Councilmember Barker, do you have a recommendation?
Well, the way the way I read it, city staff can still remove a comment, and then if the user feels like they want their comment back, that's when the council gets involved. So the council's not the one removing the comment.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to say that I was going to point out that I'm one of the senior council members that is never on social media. I do have a Facebook account, and I will activate it again if you want me to be here, but if somebody else wants the job, let them have it.
Yeah, I mean, what's our normal appeal process, John, on other issues? Could we follow that same?
So
Process.
most appeals from administrative decisions go one of two places, either to the hearing officer, and we could try to amend our contract to include this, although the turnaround would be slower. And then the other one is the council. So right now, the council is the appeal authority for building decisions, for what decisions the building official makes, for as an example.
Councilmember Dalpaz?
If someone's comment is removed, are they notified that their comment was removed, or does the city say that? Is it in there? Okay.
Yeah, what it says is that both the individual who made the comment and the council would be identified whenever a comment is removed, so that at least the council is aware that it's happening and you're not caught off guard.
And then,
I feel like,
go ahead, Councilmember Dalpaz.
yeah, I feel like things will only be removed in most extreme cases is what I'm hoping. And I mean, We haven't had a long history of having to remove comments up until, something that happened more recently. So I guess I feel like this won't be a regular pattern that it has to go through an appeals process to the most senior council members. But to Mayor's point, I'm not a legal professional, so I can't say exactly what makes sense, but it felt like something that would work, and I'm okay with it being the 2 senior members.
You can make me activate social media.
You don't have to have it activated. You just hear of the situation.
When you got a problem with probably after the next election, who the 2 senior council members are, because you have 2 council members that were elected at the same time. And you'll have 2 additional open seats, but I'm sure we,
Whoever was sworn in first of those newest council members.
I think they were both at the same time, as I recall. Maybe we could go by age or something of that nature. John, the other thing is, I'm wondering if it would be good to include in the policy that we have no obligation and probably in most cases won't respond to comments. I didn't see that in there. I may have missed it. But I just, for informational purposes, want people to know that we may or may not respond. We have no obligation to respond. I mean, that might be common logic, but I'd like to see that specific. Somebody once said, setting the expectation is important.
Can I add?
Yes.
It's in there, Mayor.
Where is it? I didn't catch it.
First sentence, last paragraph.
Sort of.
We could add.
I would suggest something to the extent of the mayor and council isn't obligated to respond to Facebook comments. They may, if they would like, something like that, just to create the expectation. We could even put something to the extent of a phone call or email to the individual mayor or council member may prove most effective. Something like that, because then if I'm taking a social media hiatus for a week and there was a burning question that came in, somebody could know that, oh, well, I guess he didn't respond right away, so I'm going to call him. That was a lot of words, sorry, but just an idea.
Councilmember Watson.
I assume this will be posted somewhere obvious and not like hidden that you have to dig to find. I just feel like if this policy is posted, then it'll in itself regulate quite a bit.
Kaysville City has theirs right on their Facebook page. It's a link and it goes right to it. So I'm guessing and hoping we could do that.
Yeah, I saw in there that we didn't monitor 24/7. There was no guarantee. But frankly, I would hope those who have spent enough time on social media understand that making comments just generally creates more havoc. And so I would hope that responses to these questions are routed through our social media person instead of each council member responding to this. I would suspect that there'll be very few responses. Councilmember Watson?
Well, building off of that, I feel like I trust that we have the PIO for that reason. You know, it's the PIO is trained in a way that would be able to put out facts without bias. And in the past, I've seen bias put out as if it's fact, and I don't love that. So I think, it's obviously a sticky situation when council members get involved, although I read a lot of what's posted. I don't always, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but I'm just saying it's tricky to be unbiased and factual. And I appreciate the fact that we have the PIO who can speak on behalf of us.
Any other comments?
Hey, John, make that .com, not .gov.
What helps us determine fraudulent links and spam? It seems like most of the time you can decipher if a link is sketchy. At least I feel like I can kind of tell. But I guess that's a hard one. But I feel like if someone's posting from a country outside of the United States that, it's usually, I don't know how you do that, but it seems like there's got to be a way we could identify those.
I think as you said, probably the only comments that would be subject to this are the extreme out of the ordinary. I mean, if a comment's made and it's made, I don't know why we're excited to remove it, so to speak. Generally, it just embarrasses the person making the comment. It doesn't really, people are going to conclude in their own mind what they think anyway. So I suspect, there's not going to be a lot of removals. Here, I talked to Katie earlier about maybe creating on our webpage a section that says recognizing or honoring city employees. I think that was one of the main concerns we had, is that when we recognized an employee, there were those who were being kind of personal attacks. But we could honor and recognize employees on our Facebook, not on Facebook, but on our webpage, having a section there. And John, I'm just wondering, not as me, because it's, I've made the announcement I'm not running, but why couldn't we have the mayor make that determination in consultation with you, instead of trying to appoint the senior? Each council member has a different approach to social media. But that could be surely one of the mayor's responsibilities, is to monitor that page and work closely with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking about the council. If you could just contact one person and say, here's the appeal, and have that discussion. Council members always aren't available to do that. The mayor generally is. I don't know, just a thought, but I think there was some discussion early on about having a citizen who's active in social media also making, aware to the PIO of potential issues. Did we?
I think that's,
Did
yeah,
miss
so I think
that too?
it says if a city staff or citizen believe it violates, then they can reach out to the PIO. That's right under these bullet points. The idea being that really it's whoever tells the PIO. Again, it's the only thing that's a little weird in our current situation is me as the PIO, if I'm also involved in the appeal process with the mayor, it wouldn't seem fair to the person who's getting the appeal. So maybe the best way to do it, to take the PIO out of the decision to eliminate the comment and leave them in, is the appeal. And because I think that a good example that Katie and Dave, can talk about, should it be eliminated or not? And it doesn't have to be the PIO who makes that decision.
But John, you happen to be our PIO. And there's a lot of legal language in there. And my thought was, as normally takes place, you would make the recommendation. You're not making the decision, but if you make a decision internally to remove a comment, then I'm sure the appeal person or board would be very interested, as our legal counsel, getting that understanding of why. So that's what I meant by in consultation with,
Okay.
yourself. But whatever the council decides. I just don't see us removing a lot of comments.
So I did add that language at the end that said, the mayor and council are not obligated to respond to social media. Important questions can be email at this email address or phone call to council members on the phone numbers posted on the website. Just so that people at least know how to get there. And we can make this link longer so that it will actually link to the contact page for the council. I just don't know it off the top of my head what it is.
This also indicated, if I read it right, that we have a city fire department,
Oh, yeah.
which we don't. We have we're a member of a district.
So we'll make it clear that it's, we'll say Northview Fire District.
Actually, 2 words.
My spelling today is off.
Okay, what else, council? So we don't beat
Councilman
this to
Pulver
death.
mentioned the website name needs to be .gov. North Ogden.
Yeah, where it says northogdencity.com.
No, he was suggesting change it to gov because it's .gov
Yeah.
now.
Isn't it .com right there?
Yeah,
So
no,
we need to send.
it needs to be changed from .com to .gov.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was .gov. It's supposed to be
It used to
.com.
be
isn't it?
.org, right? Now it's
Yeah.
.gov.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's .com technically, or
It's-
both. It's either one technically.
It's currently .com. The email addresses are .gov.
okay, that's my confusion. Apologies.
But
That's no problem.
if you noticed while we were talking, I was flipping them back and forth because I typed them in wrong. So it's, but if you go to northogdencity.gov, it actually should redirect you to the city page.
And just here's another thought. When you say citizens can call in, you're going to have the same problem with what's obscene to one citizen. I almost would prefer that we identify somebody or something, because all of a sudden you can start getting all these calls of, well, this is a fraud, this is obscene, this is, because everybody has their different definition of that. And, I guess any citizen can call, but it would seem like to me, we had somebody volunteer to do it. Councilmember Watson?
I like the idea that was proposed where the citizens could give that first initial, or give like a hint or a flag, right? And so whether it's Dave who's doing the first approval and then John who's doing the appeal process or whatever it is, I feel like the citizen's not the deciding factor. It's the person giving a heads up, right?
Yeah. You just, if you get a lot of, not that we would, but you never know. We have our department heads with pretty specific things that fill up most of their day. But whatever. Councilmember Dowpaz, did you have?
I don't think it's going to be a problem. Sorry,
Yeah.
I just
don't see us
it,
removing.
it could at some point in the future start to become a problem, but I do not think that council member phone numbers and mayor phone numbers are going to be flooded with phone calls because of this document that's on the Facebook page. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Never know.
let's address it if it becomes an issue.
Well, that's where we always have a difference of opinion. I think our job is to prevent potential issues, instead of waiting till they happen, but
I'm just stating that
You have the
I don't think
vote.
it will become a problem.
okay, then let's move forward with what we've got here. No one-
Forward your phone calls to me if you get them regarding this.
Okay, anything else? All right, John, are you looking for approval then of that policy this evening?
Yes.
All right, you've had a chance to review the policy, you've had a chance to make comments. Councilmember Pulver, do you have any other additions?
Nope, I think it was pretty good and I appreciate all the help.
Councilmember Barker, did you have
Um,
further comment?
Just one last, you still have the 2 most senior council members. Did we want to change that just to the mayor? Because I'm in favor of that.
Or Dave and
down
John.
below
Or Dave and John, either way.
for the appeal.
Let's see.
Or mayor and most senior council member.
Just the mayor. I think the mayor made a valid point, so. Not that I'm trying to get out of work.
Well, hopefully the next mayor will be highly engaged in social media. Anything else? Council, you okay with that? All right, if that's the case, I'd be looking for a motion to adopt the social media policy as presented this evening and amended by Mr. Call. Do we have such a motion?
I wanted to give Chris the opportunity since he worked on this.
I'm trying to find the mute button. Anyway. Yes, Mayor, I motion that we approve the social media policy and get it uploaded as soon as possible to turn comments back on.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Pulver. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second?
Thank you, Councilmember Dowpaz. Do we have any further discussion this evening? Seeing none, and then we'll start our roll call vote. We'll start with you, Councilmember Pulver.
Yes.
Councilmember Watson,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
And Councilmember Dowpaz.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. John, if you get that posted as soon as possible, that would be great. All right, we'll move on to the next item, which is item 7 on our agenda. This discussion will be led by Scott Hess, our Community and Economic Development Director. And this discussion will be an action to approve Ordinance 2025-09, which is amending the North Ogden Code Title 11-9M-10 concerning animals and fowl, and then 14-1-10. And a lot of this is, I think, removing some inconsistencies and a few minor changes, Scott. So if you'd like to proceed.
Just apologize in advance for having 4 items right in a row, but the first one that we'll take care of is a land use ordinance. That's Title 11-9M-10, Animals and Fowl. Staff and also members of the public had indicated that there were inconsistencies in the way the ordinance was written and how to administer it by staff. And Planning Commission held a public hearing. We did receive some public comments, and those are a part of the minutes that have been shared with you. It was kind of 50-50, but generally what we found is that it appears the way that the animals and fowl were originally put in the city code, that there's a bit of a conflict between what might be considered large animals and then small animals. So if you administer this to the letter of the law today, it would require that no barn, coop, pen, or corral be any closer than 50 feet from any dwelling and 75 feet from a dwelling on an adjacent lot. And I'll tell you that right now, just going out and looking at the several thousand residential R110, R12.5, 8,000 square foot lots and smaller, that this really eliminates backyard chicken keeping from the majority of our city if we administer the code this way. In order to correct that, staff's recommendation, and was supported by Planning Commission, was to eliminate the words coops out of the entire first section. So section A through D is really related to large animals. So that would be barns, pens, or corrals. And we haven't had anybody trying to do a barn, a corral, put a horse any closer than 50 feet to their property. And that limits it really to the residential RE20 zone or those properties that are half acre and larger. Beginning at section D, the keeping of backyard chickens in residential zones, we have that coops will be treated the same as accessory buildings, and have inserted C 11-9M-8, which is the code for accessory buildings, and eliminated any section other than coops must be maintained not closer than 25 feet from any dwelling on any adjacent lot. So there is still the, I guess it's the who came first provision. So if you have a new home built in a subdivision and they put a chicken coop in, we're not going to hold up certificate of occupancy for the second house that gets built. If it's built too close in proximity to the chicken coop, it would create a non-conforming, like a legal non-conforming use. But once you have two homes side by side, we would require that it's 25 feet away from a dwelling on any adjacent lot. We recommend eliminating the permit for keeping chickens because that has never been utilized, and it'll actually follow up again in the consolidated fee schedule later tonight. And then one of the items in looking at other cities that the Planning Commission recommended is that coops must not be constructed from scrap or dilapidated materials and must be finished with all-weather exterior materials. And that doesn't include any specific materials, but the way I would think about it is like a standard plywood, unpainted, unpressure treated, sticking out there in the harsh winters of North Ogden would last maybe a year, and then it will fall apart essentially. So I think when we look at these on a land use permit, we'll ask the question of what it's being constructed of. And most of the time, if it's a tough shed material or something else that's similar lap siding, if it's painted, it holds up great. If it's not, becomes a question. So with that, that's the clarity that Planning Commission is recommending. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. Council, do you have any questions about chickens or cats and dogs? Councilmember Dowpass.
In the commission discussion, I seem to remember that it was one of the smaller zones is kind of problematic with the 25 feet. And did we decide to put those really small zoned areas out of this ordinance? How, or explain that?
Yeah, so the interesting thing about a Title 11 ordinance is it has to follow state code for public notice requirements. And that residential R15 zone, the Planning Commission said, we really shouldn't put backyard chickens on 5,000 square foot lots and smaller. We couldn't make that recommendation to City Council because it wasn't publicly noticed in the first 10-day public hearing notice. So that will be an ordinance to follow. Based on Planning Commission's recommendation, we'll set that public notice, we'll have that hearing, and then we'll bring you forward another ordinance that would relate over in the residential R15 zone that the keeping of backyard chickens is not permitted. And it would be as simple as that, but it just comes down to the nature of land use ordinances and state code in their public hearing process.
Okay, good question. Thank you. Anything else? Any questions? Further questions for Scott? Okay, this is ordinance 2025-09. And once again, I'm looking for a motion to approve that ordinance, which amends North Ogden Code 11-9M-10 and 14-1-10, primarily to remove inconsistent distances requires for chicken coops and animals. So do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Barker.
I'll make the motion to approve ordinance 2025-09, amending North Ogden Code Title 11-9M-10 and 14-1-10.
Thank you, Councilmember
Second.
Barker. You have a second? John?
We forgot to change it on the ordinance that the next item, which is the ordinance 25-10, is the one that actually amends Title 14. Just for clarification.
So I need to remove Title 14 from my motion.
That would probably, just so that it shows up in the minutes the right way. And that's my fault for not double checking that for y'all.
All right. Amend my motion to remove Title 14-1-10.
Okay, do we have a second to that amendment,
I'll second.
Councilmember Pulver?
Yep, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Yes, Councilmember Watson?
I was just curious, during this time where we had a conflict and discrepancy and we had people come in or file for or ask for permits, are those people able to be tracked down and explain the new update, or do we have no way of letting them know?
We could look to land use permits and see who was denied. With land use code, you get the letter of the law the day you apply, so they would need to reapply. And we could maybe grant, if they paid their $40 fee and we denied them, grant that they can move it forward at that point. But that wouldn't be too difficult to look back over the last 6 months or year to see who's been denied.
It doesn't have to be terribly long, but that would be unfortunate for those who just tried yesterday or something. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, any other questions or discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll start with you, Councilmember Pulver, on our roll call vote.
Yes.
Councilmember Watson,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
and Councilmember Dowpass.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously. John, I guess we'll have Scott talk to us about amending then 14-1-10. Is that what you're looking for in ordinance 2025-10?
Yes.
That amends the maximum number of animals that can be kept in a home.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Hess, proceed.
Thank you. So again, Title 14 is in the city code. It does not require a public hearing, a planning commission recommendation, and the council gets to amend that automatically. So what John and I have done is we've made this ordinance and the Title 11 ordinance match in all ways, except for once you get down to keeping of backyard chickens, letter E, it just states that keeping of backyard chickens in residential zones are governed by the rules in 11.9 M10 of the land use code. So we no longer will have a circular reference that we need to look at both Title 14 and Title 11. And there are reasons to keep similar ordinances in two sections of the code, mostly for code enforcement. And then also the ease of changing, if you have a really difficult issue and you need to change the code, it's easier for the council to change those city code portions as opposed to the land use code. But our recommendation is to just let backyard chicken keeping all be held in Title 11.
Is this an increase? It seems like you could only have 3 animals before. Now you can have 3 and 1 or 1 and 3.
I don't
Is
know.
that my
John, did you
recollection?
So under 14.1.7, it says 4 animals, and under 14.1.10, it said 2, then gave the number 3, dogs or cats. And so we're trying to clarify, and the council can go either way. Although we don't have an ordinance that changes 14.1.7 lower than 4 in front of us, but we could bring it back next time if the council wanted to say a smaller number than the 4 total animals, no more than 3 dogs or 3 cats. So
It's
can have-
pretty unenforceable anyway. Who goes around to see how many? Chief, you've been going around checking that out? Okay.
Ticker.
So I think as I remember at one point in time, the intent was 3, but we have 2, 3, and 4. So you're recommending we stick with 4.
4 was what was shown in 14.1.7, which technically more than 4 up here above is when you have to get a kennel license. So it'd be easy to bring back 14.1.7 and drop that number down to 3. It's totally up to the council. About every 5 years, we play with this ordinance a little bit, and I'm not sure it might have been more than 5 years since we touched it. So,
And we probably never had a reported violation of the ordinance that we've enforced, or?
we have a good example is we had someone on this in town who had at one point 10 huskies in their yard, and so this was one of the ordinances we were relying on to make it clear they couldn't keep them.
So under this, they could just have 3, right?
Yeah. And under the other section, the 14.1.7, there is an exclusion for service animals and those animals that are therapy dogs, that they don't necessarily count, but there's still a total limit on the number of dogs. Even those you can have of those.
A lot of therapy dogs around.
Yeah, I think that was when we did it last time. I think we added some language saying they have to be certified therapy dogs and things like that.
Okay, council, do you have any questions for Mr. Call on this ordinance? It's before you, now would be the time if you have any questions. Mr. Pulver, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Then I'd be looking for a motion to approve that ordinance. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 2025-10, which is amending the maximum number of animals that can be kept in a home. This is related to section of code 14-1-10.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or a second on that motion by Councilmember Dalpas? Have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson. Any further discussion now or questions? I see none, so we'll proceed with a roll call vote. Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
Councilmember Watson,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
And Councilmember Dalpas.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to item number 9 now. This is a discussion or ordinance to approve, ordinance 2025-11. And this is amending the North Ogden Code 11-19-3. And this is regards of location and design of parking spaces. This is proposed to reduce the distance requirements for drive aisles in parking lots that are adjacent to Washington Boulevard and or other streets noted as collectors or arterials in our general plan. So, Mr. Hess,
Thank you.
proceed.
So Planning Commission held a public hearing on May 7th on this ordinance, and they recommended the ordinance that was drafted actually had an inconsistency between the Planning Commission's recommendation and what I had drafted. So John and I have corrected that today. The corrected ordinance that reflects the Planning Commission's recommendation accurately is on the screen now. And that is to make sure that there's a clarity between what's a drive aisle and what's a permanent parking location. So we've added the word drive aisles, and let me read it up here. So all areas of a parking lot, with the exception of necessary points of ingress and egress and drive aisles, shall be no closer than 14 feet from the top back of curb or property line, whichever is greater. And then parking stalls shall be 20 feet away from the front property line. The 14 feet, if you'll remember back, was around the time that this building was created. We had a distance requirement for parking lots, and 14 feet gives you a 4-foot park strip, a 5-foot sidewalk, and then about 3 feet of kind of grass area so that you can back a vehicle into a parking stall and not overhang the sidewalk. So the 14 feet was measured that the parking stall should be no closer than 14 feet to the back of the curb, with the hope that you don't end up with the back of trucks or the front of cars overhanging a sidewalk. This will help with some of the parking areas that are constrained, some of the older areas of town that have limited, give them drive aisle access in areas that currently it's all areas of the parking lot have to be 20 feet from the front property line. And Planning Commission recommended it this way. All permanent parking would still remain 20 feet back, but other portions of the parking lot could get closer than 20 feet along Washington Boulevard and other arterials or collector streets.
Thanks, Mr. Hess. What is the consequences of parking in a zone of this nature that's not intended? Is there anything in the ordinance that creates a violation where a fine would be imposed?
Well, that's probably a Chief Einen or code enforcement question. We don't have, it's on private property, so someone would have to be watching for it. And then the question to me would be, what constitutes parking? You know, is somebody idling their car for a few minutes and jumping out of the car and running inside parking, or is that holding? Does it have to be there a certain number of, like, I don't know if this is enforceable, honestly. Like, I don't know if you'd be able to enforce parking other than maybe overnight or parking that ends up being there several hours, but I would defer to the police chief if I'm speaking incorrectly.
Yeah. All ordinances are on violation are on basically private property, right?
Yeah,
It's an ordinance that applies, so I mean,
other than public street parking.
right.
Ordinances, yep.
But most ordinances apply to private property, which this is.
Yep.
The concern I've heard is that I'm in favor of widening the drive aisle. But the whole purpose of the ordinance is to not have parking close to the street, right?
Yep, it's to provide a visual buffer. I think, I wasn't here when the original ordinance went in, but I think it was to create this feeling along Washington Boulevard, the parking was pulled back and maybe the buildings were pulled forward. We have a little more urban environment. But drive aisles can certainly encroach, and another interesting one that has encroached in several developments now has been vehicle drive-throughs. So we haven't administered drive-throughs the same way as you would administer just the standard portion of a parking lot. And I think that inconsistency is actually corrected with this ordinance change. It leads to a little less ambiguity there. But as far as enforcing the parking, that's a great question. I think it would probably take a neighbor or somebody complaining about the location of a car parked there for code enforcement to go out and.
Which is the case with basically all of our ordinances, right?
Yep.
Primarily unless it's safety issue. Councilmember Dalpas?
I listened to the planning commission. They had a lengthy discussion on this, and I tend to agree with their recommendation to for this. I wonder if Mr. Westbrook would be willing to, it's probably impossible to totally enforce, but I wonder if he's willing to put, some dash lines in the area that is not supposed to be a travel lane in his parking lot. So it is apparent to individuals that are in there that they're not supposed to, even though they may park there from time to time.
Because if they park there, right, the whole purpose is that people don't run over the curb and they can get through there. And if cars are parked there, then it's really not wide.
I just feel like there's only so much you can do, and that's at least them trying to do something about, not recommending that people park on that aisle.
Yeah, which is the case with all of our ordinances, right? Primarily. Any other questions or concerns or anything? Did you want to hear from Mr. Westbrook, Mr. Dalpas?
Sure, I think Christina might have some thoughts.
No, I
or-
was just gonna say sure.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Mr. Westbrook, would you like to make any comments on how we control that issue?
Jason Westbrook, big owner of Big O Tires. I'm willing to paint the whole sidewalk there red, or the curbing there red. The big thing is with this, we will be cutting into the landscape to where we will have a retaining wall basically. So it's going to be recessed down. But we can paint it red. We can put paint stripes down. I have paint stripes for handicap parking. People still park on those paint stripes for the handicap parking when everybody knows what that is. I can do everything possible, but I can't prevent it.
Yeah, I think we're just looking for effort.
Yeah.
And frankly, if I understand this right, even on private property, if people are parking in handicap stalls, that's a violation, can be ticketed.
Okay.
Which I'm surely in favor because I see that a lot where people are taking up
Yeah, I've seen that
handicap parking
quite a few
places,
times.
So,
But yeah, I'm willing to do everything I can to try and get it to stop.
yeah, I think that's all we're asking is that
Okay.
we make an effort, particularly that your folks don't park cars there. You
Yeah.
can't control the public, but you can control where your guys park.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I see none. Then I would be looking for a motion to approve that ordinance, which is 2025-11, which is amending the North Ogden Code Title 11-19-3. Do we have a motion to amend that?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 2025-11, amending North Ogden Code Title 11-19-3 to design and location of parking spaces.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councilmember Pulver. Any further discussion? I see none, so we'll take a roll call vote. Councilmember Pulver,
Yes.
Councilmember Watson.
Yes.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Dowpaz.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously. Good luck. There. Move on to item number 10 on our agenda this evening, which is a discussion regarding a Verizon wireless tower, I believe, John. Scott's going to also lead that discussion regarding a land lease on property that's owned by the city.
Thank you. So Dakota Hawks with Verizon Wireless contacted the city, and one of the roles that I have been granted as the CED director is to do property purchase acquisition and help with property management for the city. So I met with Verizon Wireless, Representative Dakota Hawks up on site, and they'd like to locate a tower on property owned by North Ogden City. One is on the southern end of the equestrian park, east up the access hill that goes up and accesses private property that's in Weber County to the east of the location. And then another potential would be on the northernmost portion of this parcel, just before you get to the green waste pit. And I don't know what the full limitations are in the green waste pit, but John's alluded to this several times, that when the family granted that to the city, it's to be retained as open space. So in my opinion, I don't think that locating a land lease there with a cell phone tower or a cell tower would meet that requirement of open space. So we wanted to provide a couple of potential options. Both options are really well out of the way. The cell phone towers have about a mile service range, and they try to mesh together. So right now this would add greatly in service. The number of connected systems that are happening, or connected devices just generally everywhere by Wi-Fi, is an issue in all cities and all communities. But this is one that's affecting likely public safety and other things that we should be considering as a city. Numbers that I don't have for you, and they really vary widely from a few $100s a month to a few $1,000s a month, is what the land lease cost would be. So we can pin that down a little bit closer as we get there. But what we're looking for as staff is consideration on the two different locations, and whether the council would be willing to give us like a thumb in the wind of, this is a location I would potentially support, and then we can begin drafting up an agreement with Verizon to bring back to the council for your consideration on indicating this property as surplus property, and then allowing us to move forward with contracting on a land lease.
Okay. What questions do you have for Mr. Hess? So what you're looking for is the council favorable for you to proceed with negotiations on these various locations, and then you'll bring that back?
Yep, and if
to
you
the
have a
council.
preference on one versus the other. So they're both going to retain access to the existing private road that goes up, and or retain access to the full area of the equestrian park. The northern circle, if John still has the diagram, but the northern location is slightly lower. So the tower could potentially be a little bit higher. They're trying to clear all those trees that are just on the west side of Mountain Road and provide service to all of the area west of Mountain Road, for approximately half a mile or so, because it's a mile radius. The other nice thing about new towers and the way our ordinance is written is that it requires any new tower to be able to co-locate. So while this is Verizon making the request, if AT&T or Cricket or any other service provider wanted to come in, they would be able to co-locate their facilities on that tower. And then they can either pay a sublease rate to us. So, cell phone tower leases can be really beneficial to the city financially. And then they would pay a portion of Verizon to help them pay for the tower cost and maintenance. So if both locations are okay by the council and we can just begin looking at it, then Verizon would go out and do a further site assessment, similar to what was the last page of the staff report. If you have one preference over the other, then we'll direct them in that direction.
Any objections, council, for them proceeding? See no objections, so go ahead and proceed and bring back to the council the options and what the lease may look like. Okay, thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to item number 11 on the agenda. This is a resolution 08-2025. This is amending the consolidated fee schedule. John, do you want to point out those amendments to the fee schedule for the council?
Sure. So council, this is the standard form you're used to seeing. The changes are in red, and the stuff that is in black is staying the same. The first changes are ones that you haven't seen yet. But Councilmember Barker, as Fire Marshal Barker, called up and said, the city doesn't collect these fees for us, we collect them ourselves, so they shouldn't be in the city fee schedule, and so we took them out. And you can ask him if he objects to it, but I'm pretty sure he's okay. The next one are some stuff that were suggested by the police department, as far as increasing some fees to incentivize compliance. As you know, our goal is compliance, not fees. But those who do violate our ordinances would now pay between $5 and $20 more, depending on what the city had to do. You know, a good example is with this first one, the abatement of a nuisance. That would be just the administrative fee for the time for the chief, for the attorney, and for others to get that processed, and the actual cost to do the work would still be based on how much it cost. Let's see. Oh, that jumped quick. Here is a reference from that Scott talked about earlier, the chicken license application being officially removed from the fee schedule. The next big changes are going to be down here in the aquatic center. The $950 is what the council had talked about last time, and then we just scaled all the other fees in a similar way with either a $1 increase or that sort of stuff. There are a few new things. We can sell goggles, sunscreen, North Shore branded T-shirts. They've done a really good job. They've done a new kind of design for the facility, and it's been well received by the staff, at least. I think they look pretty cool. So, but everything's just kind of has gone up incrementally to try and line up. And also, it's important to note that most of these that are done, that are sold, have they include the sales tax. It makes it easier on everyone if we can round to the nearest quarter. The folks counting the coins, as well as those running back and forth to the bank, not having to go and get nickels and pennies as we run out through the day. There's also stuff here for reservations. There is a new program we're trying this year where you can, we have 4 reservable small tables that have an umbrella over them. You can sign up and pay $10 per hour to reserve a table for 2 hours. So $20 gets you a table. We test ran that with some of the staff in a meeting and said, how much would you pay? Because at least two staff members have family members who will show up at 11 when the pool opens, throw their stuff on a table, and then everyone shows up at 2 o'clock. And so it's been unused for 3 hours. And they said that they for sure would pay $20 to know they had a table at 2 o'clock when they showed up. So we're going to try it to earn a little revenue.
They don't have to keep paying for it as they're using the table then, just before they get there.
No, the idea is that if you show up at 2 o'clock, that's when your time starts and you're paying for the 2 hours you're using it. And so if it's not reserved before you get there, then people can use it. But as soon as that time comes, then people need to move. It's the same rule that we have with the Boweries. So if the Bowery's not reserved, families can go in and eat there. But if they are reserved, then when the time comes, the staff will have them bump out. And then this special events market rate, that is just tied to the idea that we include this is how many people come in plus the Bowery rental, and then they pay for how much the cake costs. So we'll actually go pick up a cake from Lee's, or I don't think we get them. I think it's always Lee's. So, but they pay what the cake costs. So that it's like when you buy a fish, right? Market rate. There's some changes. This again is public safety, dealing with videos, clearance letters, things like that. Just an increase to help cover increased costs for administrative time. Same thing with compliance when your dog's impounded. Eliminated livestock impounds because we do not impound livestock anymore. The county's in charge of all that. That's part of our agreement with them for the animal services. And then the next ones are the utility fees that the council had talked about, the increases in the budget process. This just reflects what that discussion entailed that we had 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. And so it's just been incorporated in. Not everything moved. So for example, solid waste moved because our cost per ton and tipping fees are what is changing. With culinary water, it's just our base fee. We're not increasing under this proposal the rate of water because our pumping costs haven't gone up. It's been our other non-pumping costs. And then same thing with stormwater, sanitary sewer. The sanitary sewer, this is just the pass along fee from Central Weber. We are not changing ours. So there is a change to the fee to the resident, but it's not because of North Ogden, it's because of the Central Weber increases. And then impact fees, we've gone ahead and inserted. These have already been approved by the council, but we're now putting them on the schedule since they'll go into effect on July 1st. And on a note, we should be hoping to present to you in June the final IFA for the water, so we can get that in the system, and that means it'll be charged probably around the beginning of October to new homes. And then fire department, they have increased theirs, and so we've shown that on here as well. As of right now, we are still collecting those for them, although there is some talk about maybe the fire department doing their own impact fees as well and us not collecting them. And that is all the changes. And Scott is the one who did put this together. He was very nice to me and put them together. So anyways, it's a lot of changes. It's probably more changes than we've seen in our fee schedule in a long time, but a lot of it is catching up. And you'll also notice, and this is one of the recommendations from the Citizen Budget Committee, not everything is moving. There's a lot of things on here. This is a good example of what's here. The city map, the zoning books, things like that. Those aren't things that we sell that often. I don't think we've sold the cookbook for $10 plus tax anytime recently. I don't even know if we have any cookbooks. But this is one of the tasks that we're going to have with the administrative department heads, is to go through and decide what are we still doing, eliminating those that we aren't, and then making sure that we're covering a cost to print out or provide the things that people might request.
John, we're still going to look at the business licenses as Councilmember Pulver suggested.
Mm-hmm.
So we could be coming back with additional changes, but
Yeah,
not at this time. Is that correct?
that's correct, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for John or Scott on the fee schedule? All right, I'd be looking for a member of the council to motion to approve resolution 08-2025, which is amending the consolidated fee schedule as presented by Mr. Call. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve resolution 08-2025, amending the consolidated fee schedule.
Thank you, Councilmember Barker. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Dalpaz. Any further discussion? All right, we'll start with our roll call vote with Councilmember Pulver.
Yes.
Councilmember Watson,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
And Councilmember Dalpaz.
Yes.
That motion also passes unanimously. I believe, John, you're going to handle the next item, which is item 12 on our agenda. And this is a discussion or action to approve resolution 09-2025, which would identify the city's plans to enter the truth in taxation process. John?
So there is a new rule that says we have to let the county and the state know by June 1st whether or not we're doing a truth in taxation. It doesn't say how you're supposed to do that, except that historically we used to, by June 26th, have to pass a resolution that said this is the rate and we're doing truth in taxation, or this is the maximum rate. Out of an abundance of safety, we thought we should establish that we're doing a truth and taxation by resolution, just so we would meet those things. And so the current recommendation is August 12th, which would be the first regularly scheduled meeting for the council. It is also noteworthy on that day, there will be nothing else on the agenda that isn't budget related. So we used to always say you couldn't have anything after, but the new state rule is nothing on the agenda that isn't budget related. So August 12th will be a budget, in theory, the final budget discussion. And so we just need, if you're still planning on doing a truth and taxation, even 1%, we do need to have something to guarantee to the county that and the state that we are holding the hearing. Although I think we could technically back out of it if we wanted to. This just lets them know we're thinking about it.
John, historically, I think you mentioned we've had to give the upward, do we have any amounts here?
No, this just says we want to have a hearing, and then we'll have another resolution in June that says, and at that hearing, this is the percentage.
And that'll be after the June 10th meeting, I assume.
Yes, we still don't have our property tax rates from the county yet. They're still uploading them, so.
Okay. Any questions for John, council? Councilmember Watson?
So, John, when you said August 12th, is that the truth and taxation plan, or is that the last budget?
That is the night that the hearing for the city budget, which includes the truth and taxation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Councilmember Pulver, any questions from you? Okay. Councilmember Barker?
Yeah. Previous years, we've never, or no, I shouldn't say never, we haven't adopted the budget on the same night as truth and taxation. So we're saying that we're just gonna come and have the meeting and then that's it.
Yes and no. So if we do that, then they actually, under the new state code, it requires you to also extend the public hearing.
Oh.
Although at the second meeting, you can have other things on the agenda. So we would technically have 2 public hearings for the budget. And that's just what I kind of planned on, is that in August, there'd be a meeting on the 12th and then one on the 26th. So that residents knew that the council was taking those 2 weeks to see if we could tweak and move a little more.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Call? Thank you for that question, Councilmember Barker. So do we have a motion to inform the county and the state that our intentions are to have a truth and taxation hearing the date of August 12th? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Watson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Dalpaz. Any further questions or discussion? We'll have a roll call vote on this. It's Resolution 09-2025. Councilmember Pulver?
Yes.
Councilmember Watson?
Yes.
Councilmember Barker?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalpaz?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously. We'll look forward to the 12th of August. We'll now move on to item number 13. Mr. Call will be handling this. This is a discussion or action to approve the local transportation funding agreement for the Mountain Road Corridor Preservation Project, which I think Mr. Call has discussed several times. John?
Thank you, Mayor. So Eric is the one who was supposed to present this, but has had a family obligation with a graduation or something. Anyways, totally fine. Happy to help. But here's a map of the Mountain View corridor, Mountain Road corridor. And the areas that we still need to acquire are down here. This is north of the Green Waste Pit and south of the Divide Road. The area that's kind of, many of you have probably been in this area, that's north of 3100 or the Divide Road and kind of goes up towards the Cove. And then there's a section that's on the western side of the city that's right along the bottom of Long Bench. And we received some WACOG money, or it's been approved from WACOG. And this is the agreement that finalizes the terms of that, the percentage of the city, and when the money is available. This currently this current request for the $1.28 million or 1.2 and some change does require the city to contribute $280,000 as a match. So with this, the county would be giving us enough money to buy about a third of the right of way. And their request to us was to ask for the additional money in subsequent years, because if we asked for all the money in the 1 year, we'd take all of the corridor preservation money, and they didn't feel like it was fair to the other communities that might have smaller projects for us to get it all. So there'll be 2 more like this, but this agreement is the same as the ones we've done in the past. It outlines the process we'll follow, which is basically following UDOT's acquisition standards. And we will go out and start talking to the property owners. It is important to note that with this program, and what we've already talked to about some of the landowners in this area, is that every indication we have from at least one of the groups that owns a significant portion of this land and their neighbor is that if we pay for the right of way, they will build the road with all the utilities in it at their cost. Whereas with Monroe Boulevard, for example, that is the anticipation that as people subdivide, they will do the infrastructure. But with these groups, they've actually said, well, they'll put the road in now. And the fire marshal can maybe talk about this, but this would help get people off the hill. It would give a second really important route, and maybe even a third. You could look at it to get people out of the cove and off some of those other neighborhoods on the hill. So staff recommends this and willing to take any questions.
John, do we have a written agreement with the property owners that if we do purchase this, that they will do that, or is that just a verbal? What's our status there?
It's just a verbal. Right now, they are for sure going to do the sewer and water connection. The road is not something that they've agreed to or promised to. However, we could get that in writing. In theory, they'll do it someday eventually, and I think they're just looking at the money they have on hand and thinking this would be a good use of development money that they might not have another use for. So.
And just one other question, where will the 280,000 come from, John?
It'll be coming out of our transportation utility fee fund. Not utility, sorry, impact fee.
Okay.
So this is the money that new homes pay into the system.
Perfect. Councilmember Delpaz, did you have a question?
Yeah, which section is projected to be first?
This middle section right here. We were already focusing on this as our initial, just because of the fire access in this area. We want to be able to have an additional spot. The fire department is looking at adding a fire station in this area. So for fire coverage and things, we thought this would be a really good fit. This area over here is a little more complicated. You got one large landowner and then 11 or 12 small ones. And then down here, it's kind of one large landowner we're working with too. So the idea would probably be the next round of funding, we just start approaching the 2 groups and seeing who's most ready at this point. And again, it might, if someone's willing to put the infrastructure in, then they might get first crack.
Other questions for John? Do we want to try to get that in writing, the improvements, if we purchase the property?
The contracts for the purchase of the property will come back to the council, so we can
I'm
include
talking
that.
about the improvements.
Yeah, so the contracts to purchase the actual right of way will come back in the future. This is just the contract to get the money from the county. So we can bring those back with an agreement to put the improvements in if the council would like.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Mr. Call? All right, he's requested that we do this by roll call vote, but I would need a motion to approve the local transportation funding agreement for the Mountain Road Corridor Preservation Project as presented by Mr. Call. Someone like to make a motion?
Mayor, I move that we approve the local transportation funding agreement for the Mountain Road Corridor Preservation project.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Delpaz. Thank you, Mr. Pulver. Any further questions or discussion? Start with you, Chris, on the motion. Are you in favor?
Yes.
Councilmember Watson?
Yes.
Councilmember Councilmember Barker?
I'm
Didn't mean
yes
to
too.
skip you.
Yep. That's it.
Councilmember Dowpaz?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to council member reports. Just as a reminder, this information is through April, which is a little over 83% of our fiscal year. But we'll start with the great news. Mr. Call, if you'd like to bring up the graphs on sales tax.
Yes. Okay, I think, yep, these are the ones.
John, thank you for preparing that. Great news is that we had a pretty large increase in our sales tax, 24% increase this month. We're not sure why. We have some ideas that perhaps this is a result of people kind of maybe rushing to make major purchases before tariffs, but we don't know that for sure. So we'll wait to see if this is a trend. As we've always said, 1 month is not a trend. 2 months may start. And if we're in this for 3 months, we'll jump up and down and be extremely happy. So, John, my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. So this puts us over budget. If you'd go down, we're how much over our expected collections with that great month we had?
3.7% or $132,000.
Excellent. Excellent. That kind of is trending. We'll hope positive news keeps going. Could you go down to the city percentage by month, John?
So it's 41%, which is significantly higher than it's about 33% higher than the normal mix.
Have we identified why that'd be the case, John? Is that we're getting less money from the
So,
application from the state, or why would that jump up so high? It's normally been kind of 1/3, 2/3.
so there could be a lot of things. We don't have pinpoint data, but sales from Lee's, Smith's, and other businesses in town contribute to that percentage. Amazon and other online contribute to that percentage, and motor vehicle sales. So any of those big purchases the mayor mentioned earlier, the sales tax goes to where the vehicle is registered as if it was sold there, even though it was it might have been sold out of Riverdale. So there's some nuances in how they divide up the motor vehicle, and it also includes all the renewals. So it could be that everybody renewed their vehicles this year, or in March. So, but it is important to note that it's a good thing to get more and more money from local businesses, especially with it being such a high month. However, it does mean that likely our percentage of the state pool has gone down a little bit, and we're just offsetting it with local sales.
Any questions on sales tax? Good news, we'll take it. Additionally, I have reviewed the financial statements as John forwarded those to me. I would put a little bit of a disclaimer on there. Our finance director still is, during this period of time that was presented, is not full-time, although he is now. So This was prepared under John's
Yes, my oversight, my undersight.
some of the math may be not totally accurate, but I would just say this, that our revenues seem to be in line. Obviously, we have some revenues that haven't come in yet with personal property tax, et cetera. One thing that I think was important to know, I know we've had some concerns about building permits with slowing economy, but we're actually above. I think we're in the 90 percentile, even though a year is only 83% through. So, that was positive. We will have to close down the administrative department though, since they've spent their budget in a little bit more. But John, there is one thing that I did want to mention as I reviewed this. I see we still haven't made the transfer into the youth council budget for the hot chocolate that was sold that we normally pay a vendor. Could we kind of get that in there? But I would say generally I saw no significant expenses that are out of line. I know there's some departments that are over, but I think we've got some adjustments, to make there, and we'll clean those up as Peter comes on board. But expenses do appear to be controlled. Revenues seem to be in line, and as John said, if we can keep this trend with sales tax, we'll be happy. That'll give us a little bit of cushion. But anything else, John, you would like to? I'm a little bit confused on interest income still. We seem to be substantially under budget in the general fund.
That is because I haven't made the appropriate accounting entries, and Peter is working on them. So
perfect. So to the point, John is, along with these other responsibilities, has done a great job, and but there's obviously some accounting tweaks that need to be made that will happen with Peter coming on board. Any questions, council, you may have as we review the financial? Our balance sheet, we still have, adequate funds in our proprietary accounts and adequate funds to deal with unexpected things that may happen in the city. So our balance sheet is also good. We have good cash reserves that have been identified to meet future obligations. Anything else? That would be my report. Happy to answer any questions. If you have none, we'll move on to Council Member Pulver, who will talk to us a little bit about Public Works. Council Member Pulver, do you have anything you'd like to report?
Yeah, there's a few things. Obviously, the big one is the work on 1700 North, the water stuff. You probably can notice that they got the tie-ins to Washington complete, and now basically they're starting phase 2, going from 500 east to 750 east. I think you've also noticed that we've gotten through all of the quote spring runoff without too many issues. There's been some water issues here and there that people have probably noted, but I think the biggest impact is not Public Works related, it's Pineview related, and that's kind of what I think we've been, we as a city, kind of have to deflect and say, well, that's not us, that's Pineview. But that's kind of been a big issue. But anyways, roll with the punches on that one. I know the other big thing, and we were talking about it earlier, we're not talking today, but other times the fiber out, the utility work, fiber optic in specific, going through different neighborhoods, and as people just trying to figure stuff out, like, what's allowed and what's not allowed. And I think citizens are kind of, even I was confused. So that's something that I think a lot of people appreciated, either email or through social media, understanding what's the real story behind that, meaning that whatever's on your plat for your house and your property is what is allowed. So that was a good thing that we figured that out. Other than that, I think that was it. I don't know if Dave's there, if he had any other comments, but that's good.
I did notice that we have coned off the coming down 400 East, I guess in preparation of the turn lane that'll be
So, yep.
started here. I'm assuming that's why it's coned off, Dave. As you know, we've had numerous requests, and for those of you who've seen people cut through the parking lot, I'm there at the plaza. I'm surprised nobody's been ran over yet, but we will start that. And do we have a completion date on that, Dave?
After it'll take about 3 weeks after they start, and they're going to start in 2, so 5 or 6 weeks. So it'll be in July.
So we just cone that off to get people prepared?
Rocky Mountain Power is moving power lines.
Okay.
So that's why it's coned off.
Yeah, and it's interesting, that single lane, it's traffic backs up pretty substantially. So, you know, we do have those who are going down 2700 can go through Pleasant View Drive and down 300 East. Probably avoid some of that backup there. So, and I did have a discussion, Mr. Pulver, with John and Dave, as I've been out walking through the neighborhood up there where they're doing work now. Dave is going to talk to them to make sure they are repairing the lawns, try to get them back to where they were. There are some that look like the repair was a little bit haphazard, so Dave is going to talk to them about making sure that's done appropriately.
Yep.
Okay. Let's move on then to Councilmember Watson. Do you have anything you'd like to report other than the close down of the admin department?
Okay. Well, from HR, we are excited that we have hired a general office assistant who will start on June 2nd, taking the place of an employee who is moving. And then this weekend was the opening of North Shore. So Justin, I'm sure, has been swamped busy. Haven't gotten an email from him, but hopefully that means good things. That's all I have.
Yeah, we had 1,000 people go in
Good.
on Monday and about 400 on Saturday. So June can be hit or miss, and it was a hit so far.
Good. And it was good to see some of the council members that were able to make it today with the ribbon cutting down at Orton Park. I want to compliment the group, the Parks group, on that. It's awesome. For those who are listening, you got to go take a look at it. It's, I think, really an upgrade. It's a beautiful park, and I know a lot of work went into that. So Dave, if you would recognize your folks on the great work that was done there. It's if you haven't seen it, it's really, really nice. And I think we're getting close to having all of our parks upgraded to the fact we can be proud of them. We have some work continued to do, but I think it's on the agenda. Thank you for your reports, council members. Mr. Call, would you like to talk anything about capital projects specifically?
Sure. So the Waterworks experience will be we'll do a ribbon cutting this month, or sorry, next month, June. But it'll be done by June 30. The 2550 detention basin, that's the one that was with the NRCS. There's been a little bit of hiccups with the money from the NRCS. However, it looks like our local congressman might be putting it in as an earmark project. They asked us for our SAMS number, which is an indication that they're moving it to the next step. And so it might be similar funding, but just a different route as a potential. Typically each Congress member or senator is allotted 10 projects, something like that, or up to a certain amount of money. So we may find some money, a different route for that. Oaklawn Park their playground is slated for the 2027 fiscal year. Mountain View Park will be the next one we replace. The aquatic center is in process. Our SCADA system is almost completely installed. Over the next little bit, our new VFD drives will be installed on the pumps, which will help with power. And then as soon as the pool closes, we'll be looking at getting a the new playground installed. And after that, likely in the spring, we'll get our new pool liner. That's all part of the RDA funds that were approved by the RDA board. And then Barker Park, currently in the budget for next year, is still the $200,000 to finalize the design process, to basically give us a construction-ready set of plans is the goal. And then we can start breaking that down into phases so that the council can say, okay, we're going to do phase 1 and find the money for that. And then the other one is this is going to be the gift that keeps on giving, which is road fixes. As we all know, roads are an issue, and keeping them from turning into gravel is something that the city will be fighting for quite a while. So I've added it to this list to just make sure everyone's aware that it's on it. As soon as we know how much money is available, we will come to the council with a list of the roads that we're going to be approaching it the first year, and then a schedule. Because if we're trying to do it in a fiscal year, maybe it'll probably be next spring, but it'll probably start early next spring when we'll actually get those underway, just so we can get them all done by June 30. So those are the capital projects.
Thank you, John. Just as a reminder, I think there's been some discussion on the approval of the plans for Barker Park, to have some discussion on potential funding for that. I believe you have brought up several times the council may be able to look at an ordinance that would utilize impact fees from all the development that's going on and where that may be directed. Council, would you like John to bring back something in regards to recommendation that before we spend the 200,000 on how it might be funded? Would you like John to bring back some ideas on that? Councilmember Barker?
Yes, but my only hesitation is if we do something similar to what we did with property tax, where it was all allocated to public safety. If we allocate every impact fee to Barker Park, we will not be able to build additional parks similar to the development down.
Yeah.
Whatever they're like, I can't remember.
West States.
West
West
State.
States.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the Cove of North Ogden is or whatever their new name's gonna be. But so I think a
Yeah.
percentage is great, but not 100%.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think that's something we've talked to John about, is putting enough flexibility in there that we don't step on our own feet, but that we have some idea on how that park would be funded. I think without a plan, it just probably
Yep.
won't happen. So, John, one other thing, if we could, there's been a lot of comments, people thinking the water experience might be a splash pad.
It is not a splash pad.
Oh, we know that, but how do we get that word out so we set the expectation? Because there is a lot of discussion about that. For some reason, it's been interpreted potentially as a splash pad.
So we will put together a post that shows a video, maybe even from the group we bought the equipment from, and just show, hey, this is what to expect.
Right.
There obviously is water there and kids will likely get wet. But the goal is not to have a spot that you can run around like the fountains at Lagoon or City Creek or anything. I guess not City Creek. What's the other one by the Jazz? Gateway. It is a more of a water table experience, and we'll get the word out.
Yeah.
That's
We
good to know.
understand that, but we
Yeah.
want to make sure the citizens of North Ogden understand that. So, okay, thank you. Anything else, council? Okay, we'll then entertain any further public comments that anyone may like to make. Who's here or online? Now would be the time. Step up, give us your name. If you're a resident of North Ogden, and please limit your comments to no longer than 5 minutes.
5 minutes, that's it.
Yeah,
Kerry Wangsgard, North Ogden. I wanted to talk to the council about, and we talked about this briefly a couple weeks ago, but commercial development. At that point in time, I said, I think North Ogden is a gem that we don't really utilize. I think the people of North Ogden support commercial businesses here in North Ogden as long as it's the right commercial business. Comments have been made, well, commercial businesses usually contact us if they want to do business here. We don't really go out and market to them. They will contact us. Businesses know more about our city than we do. And I disagree with that. I think if the city were to focus on some key businesses that you want to attract to our city, that's going to be destination businesses. And what do I mean by a destination business? Let's take the Chick-fil-A that's opening up in Pleasant View. To me, that's a destination restaurant. You take a look at the Chick-fil-A that's on 12th Street. You've got a Wendy's there. How well do they do? I don't think they do that well. You've got a McDonald's there. Does that McDonald's do better than our McDonald's here on 2700, 2600? I don't think it does. When my grandkids want to go eat somewhere, Chick-fil-A, that's what I hear all the time. So I drive from North Ogden to 12th Street to go to Chick-fil-A. That's what I do. When I come home from work, it's not like, oh, let's go out to dinner. And I say, well, let's go to Firehouse Subs out in Riverdale. I'm not going to go out there to get a sandwich. I'm not going to go to Jimmy John's to get a sandwich. We will go to Olive Garden. I'll drive to Riverdale to go to Olive Garden. I'll drive to Riverdale to go to Texas Roadhouse. Those are destination restaurants. North Ogden residents support a lot of those businesses. And if you had something like that here in North Ogden, you would get North Ogden residents, you would get Plain City residents, you would get Harrisville residents, you would get Pleasant View residents, because that's a destination restaurant that people want to patronize. And we can't sit back and wait for them to come to us. I think that's something that we need to market aggressively, and we need to take examples as far as what the profitability is to our key businesses, whether it's Nielsen's, whether it's the McDonald's there on the corner, whether it's Smith's grocery store, and say, look, these are the top restaurants in the state, or this is how much revenue they generate. You open up a restaurant here in North Ogden, you're going to succeed as long as it's the right business. Tax revenue is key to our city. We can't sit there around and wait and bring in businesses that aren't going to generate revenue. We need to look at the big players. I mean, I'm hearing stuff, oh, there's going to be a Target out behind the Maverick. I don't know if that's true or not. Do we bring in a Maverick, or excuse me, a Target? Well, I don't know if we've got the room to bring in a Target, but I hear, oh, Zupa's is coming in. I don't know. Is that a destination type restaurant? I've maybe been to Zupa's once, I don't know, but my grandkids seem to love it. But there again, is that a destination restaurant? If I come home from work and we want to go out and get something to eat, do we go to Zupa's? I can guarantee you when we go out and get something to eat with my grandkids, we're going to McDonald's or we're going to Chick-fil-A. That's where they want to go, or Little Caesars. This is just something that I think the city ought to take a look at. And you need to go out and aggressively market those businesses and do whatever you can to bring them in, because they're going to pay dividends in the long run. Can't sit back on our rear ends and just say, oh, well, if you want to come to North Ogden, yeah, we'll listen to you. You need to go out and market those aggressively. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Wainscott, let me give you a little information. Olive Garden did have interest in coming to North Ogden. The developer who owns the property couldn't pencil that out because they wanted a good portion of land for parking. And he could not make that pencil out. So the option is, and I actually think the state passed a law against this, subsidizing retail with money from cities is, but they had interest in coming here. But the developer who owned the ground couldn't make that pencil out because of the additional amount of parking they wanted, and then the interference that had with other people, other businesses with inadequate parking, because, you know, it takes an hour, hour and a half for people. But we did have some interest. But I do think your point is well taken, that anything we can do to attract destination businesses in our city. We ought to make every effort to do that. But just so you know, sometimes it seems simpler than it is because the developer owns the property and they've got to get a return on their investment. Unless the citizens want to purchase property through increased property taxes, then we can do pretty much whatever we want with it. So, but we did have interest.
That would have
Raleigh
been an
Park.
option.
It is an option if we want to go out and buy ground and develop it. So, but your point's well taken, so thank you very much.
Okay.
Any other comments this evening? I see a hand up with Susan Kilborn. John, am I seeing that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Susan Kilborn, North Ogden City resident, and I'm here with nothing but sunshine and rainbows tonight. Aren't you glad? Come on, let's see some smiles there. Oh, all the way across the board. Thank you. Okay, first of all, I want to say that you can anticipate that sales taxes will zoom in April and May, and my handsome husband and I are the ones totally responsible for most of it. I had a birthday in April, and my handsome husband dropped a very nice bauble on me that was purchased right here in North Ogden. Hint, hint. And to top him in contributing to our sales tax, I bought a brand new car in May. So, yay, Kilborns. Okay, second thing. First of all, thank you, Chris Pulver. You are my superstar of the night. It was so great working with you on the social media thing. And also, every one of you I'm looking at right there, I thank you, City Council, John, and Mayor, for having a positive attitude about social media. You all know I'm a social butterfly. I'm all over the place. I belong to probably every group there is, besides my own page. And I can guarantee you that there, not only me, but several other assertive people in our community are very, very good at quashing individuals who badmouth our city and our city employees. And just take a look and see. And some of you sitting there know that. And I just want to tell you, I'm so proud of you guys tonight. And now I'll shut up so you can go home and watch and root for the Indiana Pacers tonight.
All right. Thank you, Susan Kilborn.
Bill Swanson, North Ogden resident. Just a quick thank you to mayor and council department heads for all your hard work during this budgeting process. It's never fun, and this year's been particularly kind of crazy. So thank you for all the time and effort that you've put in.
Thank you, Phil. Anyone else? I see no hands raised online. I see no one else here rushing up to the podium. So we'll move on to comments from staff. Scott, anything further? David? Chief? Katie? John?
Nope.
All right.
Sorry, yes. Just a reminder, announcements for election, or people can sign up to run for office starting Monday through Friday. If you get questions, they have to have signed up by 5 p.m. Friday, or they are not allowed to. And we will post after 5 o'clock every day, anyone who has signed up that day, plus the previous day. So there's no reason to call and ask us in the middle of the day who's come. I know that this council's been good about that, but in the past we have had issues. So we just kind of set the rule. Everyone will find out at 5 o'clock that day. So.
Okay, thank you. Council, anything else you'd like to bring up this evening, Councilmember Dalpaz?
I'd like to take a moment to thank Ricky Hatch for his presentation and for all the information that he provided to us for all the checks and balances and audits that happen by Weber County.
Thank you. Councilmember Barker, do you have a comment?
just again, regarding our budget, I'd just like to bring up and again, voice support for our staff. I know we're making some changes regarding their benefits, we're reducing some of their contributions to their 401 or 457, depending which they're in. I hope they all know that if we are reducing, it is because we are actually increasing compensation. And I know it affects our long-term resident or long-term employees more than short-term, the entry level, but we do appreciate all of our staff, and I hope they know it is so that we can help them get more compensation
Yeah.
front end and help them take care of themselves.
Yeah, I know in discussions with John that even though that's not, nobody likes anything reduced, but that had to take place to meet the proposed budget for salaries. Otherwise, we couldn't do both. And I think there was a general consensus that they could take money to the grocery store, but they couldn't take their 401k. So it's tough, but I think hopefully the employees know how much we appreciate them. And I think the council is evident they've gone to bat pretty heavily for the employees. Okay, anything else? If not, I would entertain a motion to enter into a closed meeting for reasons permitted under Code 52-4-2051D to get regard the purchase and exchange or lease of real property. Do we have a motion to enter into a closed meeting?
I'll make a motion that we move into a closed meeting for reasons permitted under 52-4-205 regarding strategy sessions to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property.
Thank you. Councilmember Watson, do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Dawes. All in favor of entering into a closed session, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. John, correct me, but at one point in time, you had to be present to participate in a closed meeting, so we'll have to let Councilmember Pulver go.
Yeah, and I can update him on the phone if he would like,
Okay.
tonight or tomorrow.
All right. With that, let's go over to the conference